Okay. So as I said, this is our first one, which will be a series of monthly webinars. And the idea with that is, okay, the idea, you might have to check up on the group, Kate.
Yeah, I think there's a notification coming through, so I will.
Yeah, and so the idea with these webinars is to really kind of give an insight into different areas of our lives that we can be helped by looking at some of the sort of things that we've studied, which include the science of happiness, coaching, positive psychology, and also myself, I'm studying to be a recovery coach, which is very much the American model. I know that language is quite obtrusive for certain people, but essentially what we want to achieve with Love Sober Life is really to help you all, not only our sort of phrases, not only get sober, not only stay sober, but love sober. So the idea is that, you know, we're looking at where we start, we're looking at where we are, and we're looking at our goals for the future in order to really build a holistic approach to sobriety and really be able to have the tools, the strategies, the ability to manage our emotions so we don't kind of go back to drinking. Whatever your story is, or, you know, whatever your relationship with alcohol is, what we want is for us to never feel deprived and never feel like, you know, we're missing out, or never feel like there's that one hurdle that we can't face. So yeah, the idea is to support you by giving you tools, some discussion topics every month in order for us to really sort of feel like we are getting to grips, you know, a real strong scaffolding for living. Yeah, as I said, there's, you know, 3 stages in kind of progression through something. It's kind of identifying where you are, where you've been, and where your goals are. And we're very much about goal setting and moving forward. And that's kind of what we love about kind of coaching as a strategy for living. So just to give a bit of background in terms of the different models that we've looked at, if you look at the positive psychology, which is kind of one of the oldest of these concepts, of rather than kind of, you know, the old school kind of way of looking at counselling, where you're kind of the Freudian looking back into the past and what happened. Positive psychology was really analysing the situation you have in your life, and realising that, you know, there's probably about 20% that you can have a handle on in terms of your happiness and contentness in life by being a participant in your own kind of wellness. So within positive psychology, they use a model of what is called S plus C plus V, which is your set point, so your biological set point, who you are as a person. For example, you know, I have depression, so I have less serotonin in my brain naturally, so that's my set point for my own well-being. The conditions of your life, so, you know, the things around you, the wealth, where you live, your family situation, plus what they call voluntary activities. So that's your intentional activities of the way that you live your life and how that can impact on how you feel. Again, they push that on further. So you have the model of PERMA, which is positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. So we're starting to see this holistic idea of well-being as being not just something that happens, but being a makeup of lots of different things. Within the study that I've done in terms of coming back from maladaptive behavior, you would need to look at the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and social parts of your life. And so that's where we kind of came to, and also in coaching, you know, you look at if you start coaching, you always do the wheel, which is looking at different areas in your life and how satisfied you are in those areas. So Kate and I kind of looked at all this, and we've been looking and talking about what it is for women, what are the biggest sort of triggers, I guess, for women's drinking. And for us, you know, it's stress, lack of identity, loneliness, and overwhelm. Yeah. And so if we're looking at overwhelm being the kind of basis, I suppose, of where we've come to see that most women get triggered, or most people are relying upon alcohol to kind of help, is this sort of concept of overwhelm. And so we thought about, what do we need to step away from overwhelm? Well, obviously boundaries, we'll be talking about, but it is a sort of state of balance, and really finding our feet in terms of, yeah, équilibre, balance. Oh, I've got a bit of French in there. So we came up with an acronym. We have our own Love Sober Life acronym, and ours will be balance. Okay, so within each webinar, we're going to be talking about certain aspects of our lives to try and really help us to feel more balanced. Okay, so the acronym of balance is B for body. So in terms of your senses, nutrition, exercise and well-being, and mental health. The A for awe. So looking at gratitude, mindfulness, simple pleasures, spending time in nature. L for love. So self-love, self-compassion, and love of others, and receiving love. A for alignment, which is looking at values, looking at purpose, looking how you fit within the world. N for nourish, so in terms of obviously nutrition, but in terms of learning, you know, sort of nourishing your brain, and also adding in. So what, you know, the whole thing is we don't want to be deprived, we don't want to be in a state of deprivation. So what things can we add in, and looking at needs. So what is the hunger, what is it that we really need when we're reaching for a glass of wine. C is for community. It's hugely important that you have connection with others, and it's not always easy to find that in real life, to have people that really understand you and can empathize with you, which is why we set up this group and why we're really pleased to have you with us. And the last one, E for enjoyment. So a massive part of the science of happiness is looking at joy, flow, playing games, creativity, kissing horses on the nose, which Kate did today, you know, those things that really light you up and make you feel joyful. And all of these things, they are kind of the holistic approach, you know. And once you start to, I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't know any of this at all when I started out on my sober journey, but it's the things that we've learned and we've discussed together, and we've kind of built this kind of idea that, right, okay, if we start to really think about these things and be mindful of these things, then we can self-protect, and we can find joy in our choice not to drink alcohol. So that's the kind of overall overarching thing that we'll be looking over. So there'll be a webinar each month. This one, Kate will talk about autumn self-care. In November, we're going to be talking about letting go, and getting rid of stuff we don't need, getting rid of relationships or kind of, I don't know, old ways of thinking. And what else? I've got it written down here. Oh yeah, looking at the drama triangle.
As well, letting go, shedding some of the burdens that we might take on ourselves. Is a psychological model called the drama triangle, that comes from transactional analysis, and it's just it's quite a useful one, I think.
Yeah. And then in December we'll be looking at the Advent, so looking at really, Kate, you're frozen, looking at connections, kindness, gratitude, and one that's hugely important before Christmas is boundaries, which I certainly, Christmas is not easy for me in terms of my kind of family. Well, I don't think it's easy for anyone, is it? So that's my introduction. So obviously we're going to put this in the group, what the acronym stands for and why we chose it, etc. What we'll be encouraging you to do is to look at journaling questions. We'll be setting questions around the topic, and it's kind of like fun homework. So hopefully you can share it with us, and it's really about you, just taking this time for yourself, for your own wellness, for your own understanding, in order to sort of push this idea, okay, I've stopped drinking, but that leaves this gap in my life, and rather than seeing that as something negative, really sort of taking on this concept of like, wow, that means I can put all this other stuff in, and I can learn these skills, and I can feel at ease, and I can learn to say no, and I can feel confident in situations. I can change or tweak the way that I am as a parent, or the way that I am in my relationship, to make me feel better, and all those things are building your strength, and then you stop thinking about alcohol, and it becomes like, why would I, which is definitely where we are now. It's like, why would I would never give up all this for a drink. So Kate, do you want to take over, tell us
about doing this. You've frozen a bit. I don't know, I'm hoping I haven't frozen. I think it's probably just between you and me. Okay, so, autumn self-care, and the idea for this, we're coming up to the autumn equinox. It's all like, I'm in my caravan-y thing, and it's feeling very, very cozy and blustery out there, so it feels like really timely. But the idea of the basics of self-care being obviously listening in and saying, what do I need? And I like the idea, we both like the idea of the adding in. But this time of year, it's about sort of balancing the light and dark. So as we go towards the equinox, it is that midpoint between light and dark. And so it sort of, that idea of balance really seemed to fit. And so I wanted to look at the idea of some of the things to do with body being the Ayurvedic principles, and also to look at Hygge in more depth, because this sort of seemed to really sum it up, because Ayurveda says that this is a time of simplifying, because apparently the changing seasons, so the change from summer, the sort of very extrovert kind of summer, to the very introverted winter, it takes quite a toll on our systems apparently, and we get depleted. So if you're following Ayurvedic principles, which come from India, they'd be doing some kind of detox to reset, and I so can't ever detox. Like, I just find it utterly impossible. So, but it's that idea of maybe simplifying for a bit. So it's that, and then there's the idea of Hygge, which is the Danish art of happiness, creating coziness. It's like they like the queens of self-care, I think, especially for this time of year. So Hygge is all about adding in and creating that real coziness. So yes, there was this idea of balance, and the seasons changing, and maybe our needs changing, maybe this feeling of sort of being a bit depleted, to the other, maybe you suffer from seasonal affective disorder, there may be serotonin starting to dip. So really kind of, how do we fortify ourselves? How do we really kind of, just sort of move into those sort of darker seasons? So that's what we're looking at. And I am going to look at our acronym of balance. So it's a bit of a zip through today. It's like a bit of an A to Z, except it's a B to E. And the first one is the body. So in terms of the diet, so I've talked about sort of Ayurveda, but I love the kind of root vegetables this time of year. Like, I think, we're quite turned on now in the UK to kind of the idea of seasonal cooking. There's been a real renaissance in terms of cooking, I think. And so, getting the slow cooker out, you have lots of the root vegetables, you're going to get natural sugars, and they're full of vitamins. So I mean, I've been having these, this is not talking about that kind of sugar at all. I've been going to Costa and having the pumpkin spiced latte, but I did have a decaf one, and I did have it with soya milk, and it was so nice, because I am craving that extra bit of sugar at the moment, as I'm, and feeling that kind of a bit of tiredness coming in because the season's changing. I definitely, I feel almost like the plane coming into land, almost, that sort of. So yeah, those kind of things. Rest. I feel like autumn is a really lovely time to kind of turn inwards, and it's almost like the natural season of self-care. It's like, okay, I don't have to be out doing, I don't have to be out like pretending I'm having the best time on Facebook to everybody else, in the sun and in my holiday. It's like everyone's like getting cozy, everyone's kind of turning in. So that kind of, getting the multivitamins in, I can't recommend any particularly, because I'm not a nutritionist. So that disclaimer there. I know I love a magnesium bath. I think, Mandy, you might have put me onto magnesium bath for aches. If you get a bit cold and your knuckles go, mine are a bit like, I just notice in the morning I need to kind of wiggle my fingers a bit and stuff. And one of my knees gets a bit stiff. So when it rains, I've come to that age. So so magnesium baths are really good for aches and pains. What else? Yeah,
complex B vitamin is very good. Complex B vitamin. Complex B vitamin is generally
vitamin B complex. I mean, it'd be good to do one on kind of more in-depth nutrition and how it affects neurotransmitters. But I think
we'll get an expert.
Yeah, we will. Let's not do it. A little bit of knowledge is a very dangerous thing. Wow, all of these are tips and tools either from coaching or that I've sort of picked up along the way, or we've discussed. And I think it's, for me, this journey, the sober journey, is all about just seeing what works for you. Like, it's totally about an individual sort of patchwork and path of wellness that you go on and you can explore. So, if you want to feed back to us any kind of tips that you really love as well, and let's just put it in the pot, because that'll spark something off with somebody else. And none of these are rules. Obviously, they're just, I don't know, they've just come onto the radar here and there through other sober communities, or our reading, or maybe an email into my inbox from the Blurt Foundation, something like that. Okay, so next is, have you got anything else to add about body that you think?
Only that I know is, I get sad, so I have a sunlight at home, an artificial sunlight, which really helps me at this time of year. And I like what you said about, that everyone else is indoors. so you don't have that pressure to kind of be out. But the only thing about that is there is that tendency to be like, oh, you know, warm blanket. I mean, I used to have this sort of fantasy of like, oh, warm blankets, you know, open fire, you know, dog, glass of wine, even though like I don't have a fire or a dog, but it was like that would trigger in my head, and I'd be like,
those were your triggers. So you might
there is that kind of like, right, well, if you're taking that, you know, glass of wine out, then what do you add in?
pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah, so there is that thing of like really using your senses to be like, what feels good, what smells good, you know, what kind of gives you that lift, because you know it's that sensory thing, like, oh, I love mulled wine, when it's like, well, you can make a punch with like cranberry juice and orange juice and all the spices, and actually it's the smell of that kind of Christmassy thing that you want. So yeah, I suppose there's that. And also I tend to, because I'm quite an anxious person, I tend to like crunch up. I always put on big scarves.
I've got that.
Yeah. So those are the little things I would put in.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was going to say this kind of warm kind of thing. This is my purchase that I went out yesterday, and I was feeling very wobbly yesterday, just sort of tired, and I got this in Tesco, and it was 12 quid, and it's like, oh my god, it's made me so happy. So, you know, all those little things to make you feel cozy, like you say, to engage the senses. Okay. Or like one of the best times to head out into nature, and I've seen on the group people talking about this need. It's almost like we're called into the woods. Well, I am called into the woods in autumn, like, and winter. I have to be in the countryside. Oh yeah, on body enough sleep and eat and rest. Thank you, definitely. Again, we're going to be you know, the circadian rhythms are changing, and the light and the balance is all shifting, and just absolutely 100% is like one of those really important things, just to get rest. And 100%. Thank you for that. So I mean, this awe and wonder, this is again this kind of filling up, and also a really good strategy to get out of the head, tramping in the woods, looking up at the trees, anything that gets you out and again engages the senses. And I would add into awe, wonder as well at this time of year, and for me it's a beautiful time of year because we have a lot of bonfire parades in Sussex. It's like Sussex takes its bonfires really, really seriously, and they started yesterday.
Oh wow.
They do one in a village every single on the run up to the actual one, and everyone's out every single weekend with flaming torches, dressed up like pirates and everything. And like Sussex goes big this time of year, and they have loads of bonfires and loads of fireworks, not just on Fireworks Day itself, but every single weekend from now on. So I love that. And that's like wonder, you know, those kind of moments where you kind of can be a kid again, I suppose, like the carving of the pumpkins, the heading out to nature, getting you blown about by the wind, by the sea, you know, feeling it. I really get that from the Ayurvedic sort of thing of being a changing season. It feels like there's change in the air. It feels like a moving one. And I just think it's beautiful to get out in it. Then that leads into the gratitude, because then that fills you up. If you go, oh, that's really beautiful, look at those leaves. In fact, I know what I was going to say. It's really good as well. I got an app on my phone called Layout, and the pictures that I took, I then created a montage, and there were things like my daughter playing in the leaves, and an apple cake that I ate, and toffee apples that we made, and I put it all into a collage. And again, that helped me. And I looked back on it, and I was like, there was a picture of my hand holding a red leaf, and it's so beautiful, like the colours, like again those kind of senses. So that taps into me very much with that awe, which again is the science of happiness. It's really you know, giving yourself a dopamine boost and a serotonin boost. You want to say something?
Yeah.
No.
No, I was just thinking because, you know, with everything, I guess, you know, it can always be like a half full, half empty moment, you know, because you've got that sort of thing of like, oh, the leaves are falling, you know, like, oh, like then it's going to be winter and it's going to like rain for like months on end, you know, and there's that kind of heavy of like everything falling. But then you can think, oh, it's letting go, like, oh, it's going, like, oh, you know, and it's just that thing of like when you give yourself a moment to pause, and when you don't drink and you have time to just go, hang on a second, it could mean that, and I could take it like that, or I could think of it differently, you know. And I think what's wonderful about awe and wonder, because these are new concepts to me, because we're very different in our normal mindset, is that you're very much like wah, and I'm much more sort of kind of masculine in a way, and much more sort of serious and thinky about things. But I love training myself to sort of take a moment, you know, and look up at the skies and go, right, this is what it's about. You know, I'm not at all spiritual or religious, but I can train myself to sort of give myself that openness, and that's been, you know, a real gift. So it's like you might not be brilliant at it straight away. It might not feel, you know, natural. But yeah, you know, twinkling lights, and you're like, oh, just like I have some lights on the outside that are, you know, they're solar powered, so they always come on by themselves, and it's just that little moment like, ooh,
oh.
So.
And also, yeah, if you don't like nature, I mean, one thing that I've been quite interested in for a while is spaces like buildings for secular people that inspire awe. So like the Tate Modern is like of those for me, that you go in and you just go, holy moly, it's enormous and it's full of beautiful stuff, right? And there's along down London Bridge, if you go the other way to Southwark, there's some beautiful malls, and they have almost like this Tim Burton sculpture, and they have fairy lights going up poles. You can sit and have coffee. I went with my friend Bernadette and we sat and had a coffee and looked up, and that was all. Like I sat, you know, sitting by the ancient Thames, but in a cafe, looking at a beautiful sculpture. So, you know, if you're not, you know, if you're like, oh, fuck off, mud, you know, disgusting or whatever, you could go into the city and seek out beautiful places.
Yeah, I mean, cityscapes at night are pretty awe-inspiring, aren't they? So, you know, you go up high and you look out of the city. So,
yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, so that's a sprinkle a bit of fairy dust, whatever that is for you, on something to give yourself a lift. I think I really believe in that. Love. I've written something down that looks like a toothbrush, but it isn't. It's Tara Brach. Oh dear. So I will flag up again Tara Brach. And we'll link that. Is basically, I think. So I love Kristin Neff for talking about self-compassion. Dr. Kristin Neff, who is a kind of big obviously neuroscientist in it, isn't she? And she can give some really good bullet points about, and again, we'll link the resources, about treating yourself with self-compassion, like noticing this is a moment that I'm feeling something. And I've forgotten the other two, so I'll have to come back to that. But for me, Tara Brach, who talks through the RAIN process, which was recognise, allow, investigate and nurture, with her hour-long thing on YouTube, was so life-changing for me, that I would say if anyone's interested in learning about self-compassion, check out Tara Brach, because she's a Buddhist psychologist. So she's, you know, incredibly well-researched, well-educated, but she uses those Buddhist principles of ahimsa and non-violence, and I don't know, she's just got a real gift. She's just gifted in the way she can take people through it, and so she's awesome. So I would say that. The other thing I would say about love just today, because obviously we're going to do this every month, we're going to look at these ideas, aren't we, in the framework, whatever it is that we're looking at. But for now, it was that idea of this turning inwards, and I feel like it's quite an intimate time, because it's when you turn in towards your family, it's turning in towards yourself. Yes, and again, I think that that can tap into gratitude, that sort of taking a moment to see the people in your life. And I do think there's that sort of reflective thing about this time of year when we're closing the doors. The other side of that is that it can be lonely. So if it's a lonely time, if that's a lonely feeling, to reach out online and see the people, because will be people around you. So just make sure you're working those connections. You might, like, I'm quite an introvert and I can be very insular, so it's like working those connections, making sure that we're doing that. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. Shall I move on, or have you got anything to say on that?
Move on.
Moving on. Alignment, values and purpose. This one didn't kind of really fit with the autumn self-care so much with me, but I keep asking myself, like, the other idea is the idea of balance, is that we talked about this metaphor of a plane, didn't we, about the prevailing winds that come at us, and sometimes big things come up and we're really having a lot of turbulence, so we might have to do the locate your emergency exits, the lockdown. You might have to really pull in emergency self-care, whatever that looks like for you. Dialing it down, dialing the overwhelm down, getting in the bath, getting in the pajama armor, going to bed. Sometimes you just need to go to bed, right? But for me, I keep coming up, this question keeps popping up for me, which is, what is my true north? And I know that when I get knocked off my true north, I am a very unhappy bunny. Like, really, really not. And I guess at that point, I think it's a good question to ask. Sometimes, I don't know if it makes sense to everyone, but to say, what is my true north? What is most important to me? And if I secretly knew the answer, what would it be? And sometimes those little whispers can come. And so it wasn't particularly to do with autumn and the self-care, but those, as I am a person and I am experiencing autumn at the moment, and I am experiencing pretty heavy prevailing winds, those help me. So that was my sort of offering and thoughts today.
Well, I think, alignment comes into that, doesn't it? In the fact that it's like, I didn't realize how important your values and your moral being essentially is in kind of keeping you steady and keeping you satisfied and happy in your life. And I really was so far away from my values. I was working in a private, I'm not going to get in politics here, but I was working in an elite private business school. I was drinking heavily, I wasn't being a good mum. Like, there was a lot going on that was not how I had what's important to me. And I guess there is that thing of this time of year, when it is that time of kind of reflecting and coming in within. It's a nice kind of thing to be asking yourself, and I guess kind of looking, right, okay, it's kind of a bit like a horizon, visualizing the horizon, and keeping going over this period of Christmas and this period of kind of huge indulgence and abundance, but not for everyone, and there's lots of different feelings about that. So it's, I guess, that it does help very much in terms of your values and keeping you grounded. Essentially, that's what values do. It's like all this is happening, and then it's like, okay, what's important?
That listening in, I suppose, isn't it? Again, I love that true north feeling of inner compass, like to trust your inner compass.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right then. Alrighty, community. So we've, yeah. Is that next?
No, you've
Balance.
got nurture.
Nourish.
Nourish.
Nourish. Yeah. So the Hygge. I love this. And it's just like, you know, it was the big thing in 2017, wasn't it? It was like the biggest lifestyle trend. But what a brilliant lifestyle trend. It was like, thanks for that, Denmark. And it's about coziness. I mean, the literal translation is about creating coziness. But they're apparently the happiest nation, aren't they, the Danes? And even though they have all this darkness, and they're, you know, a very northern European country, and the idea is kind of what we've already been sort of talking about, and what I've done with my camper van really is like, you know, like I haven't lit any candles because it would be dangerous, but the little lanterns and the blankets and that adding in that, and the idea is to create spaces to be with people, to be intimate and to huddle. I think it's about huddling. I think it's about being with your tribe and huddling in and being warm. I think it's all about that, and keeping your spirits up. You know, we're going into the darkness, we're meant to light fires, we're meant to huddle with each other. You know, it's lovely, you know, taking time to talk to our friends, having a really nice cake with your pumpkin spice latte, and taking that moment to be in it. And you've got the extra calories, you know, I'll say that because you're not bloody drinking Vats wine, are you? So we can enjoy our food and enjoy our senses and enjoy our conversations, and actually, rather than anything being taken away, it's all there. It's like, okay, I don't have that, look what I have, you know. And and I love that kind of Hygge. And there's some books on this, the Little Book of Hygge. Oh, it's Hygge. I'm sure everyone knows about it anyway, but you pronounce it Hygge. And I think I just looked up something online, and it was something like hyggeliving.com. And again, I got well into my Pinterest for this. And I just think it's like food. It must be food porn for me, or Hygge porn, lifestyle porn. I was like, I got like pictures of hot chocolate with cinnamon sprinkle and pine cones and cozy socks by the fire and all of that. It's like, I bloody love all that. It's like the heart of Jomo, isn't it? The joy of missing out. It's like there's no missing out there.
Yeah, who would want to be out in the rain?
So
yeah, and I think
exactly.
I think also,
or isn't
like,
it lovely that when you go out in the rain? Sorry, go on.
No, carry on.
No, I was saying, you know, about, you know, because it's lovely again, that balance. So all for, you know, tramping in the fields with your lovely, you know, warm clothes on, and coming back and kicking your boots off, or maybe you've been to see a fabulous film, maybe you had an artist date in the rain with yourself and took yourself off to the cinema, or, you know, or whatever it is. And I know what I was going to do, thinking about how about work, right? Because I work from home and I live in the country, so a lot of my references are quite sort of rural and home based. But I was thinking about, how do you nourish your work environment? And I've put like plants on your desk, and maybe heart-shaped post-its, that's mine. You know, maybe you have a blanket on your, I don't know, like what your office culture is like, but I'm sure, you know, those bits of adding in again, and making sure you're having the lunch break, making sure you're getting a bit of outside, taking those moments and adding in. And I love the idea, that I should not laugh about this, but in my husband's office, they all used to bring cakes in on a Tuesday. And one of the journalists nicknamed it Type 2 Tuesday, because like they used to bring so many things in with Type 2 diabetes. So it's not funny at all. really apologise to anyone who's got diabetes. My brother has, so I'm kind of allowed to joke about it. But yes, so it was just, why not? They always used to get together and they'd have a bit of a chat about who'd bring what in. So it was quite a nice kind of. And when I worked at the FT, we used to have a cake there every Thursday and coffee. They used to bring it round. So it did mark it, So anyway, shall I move on?
Well, I was just going to say, for nurture, another thing that is,
Nourish.
Oh, I've got to change it. I've got that nurture and nourish is reading books. It's like
nice.
I couldn't focus on reading books when I was drinking. I mean, I've always read, but I would just sort of like read 2 pages and then like pass out. But now, like, I don't know, sometimes in the evening I just sort of go, all right, I'm kind of done, which used to scare the hell out of me. I'd be like, oh my God, I don't have anything to do. This is wine time. Like, I don't have anything to do. What can I do? And these days I'm just like, oh, I've kind of tidied up, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go to bed and read my book. And it's such a huge pleasure for me just to have that time. To snuggle in my duvet and read. And so I have, which is, I never had before. I always have 2 books on the go now. Like I call it my upstairs book, my downstairs book. So my downstairs book is my thinky book. So, it's like my, whatever, I'm reading a book about teenage girls, which I've talked about before at the moment. So that's my downstairs book, or kind of my early evening book, and then I'll have my upstairs book, which is my novel.
I love it.
And that's kind of that nourishment of your brain.
I agree, that's a great point. And I'd add period dramas to that, like those, like I think it's a great time I used to read Angela Carter in the autumn.
I don't know who that is.
When I was at university, she did the Bloody Chamber. It was like the adult fairy tales.
Oh, I have heard of them.
Yeah, she's awesome. Like, she's an amazing writer, Angela Carter. And you've just reminded me, because my daughter said she had a question about what is your mum's favourite thing, and she said, my mum's favourite thing is going to bed early with a cup of Earl Grey, a cup of tea, and watching Downton Abbey, which was exactly what I was doing. But she to say that I'd moved the kettle upstairs and I also had an electric blanket. So that was it. That's like.
But what a better thing to say than, well, my mum loves like sitting on the sofa drinking red wine. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Moving on.
Yes, and the next one is A, isn't it? No, it isn't. It's C. I can't spell. Right, community.
Yeah.
Again, it's sort of going back to sort of friendship. I like seeking out. I think seeing what is there. Because one thing I loved about the Science of Happiness is it flipped my thinking from being a bit Machiavellian, thinking that everyone was a bit of a bastard and we're ruining everything and all the rest of it, and survival of the fittest. I had that model of thinking, and when
that's your brain that's the relational part of your brain, which is probably a bit damaged by alcohol. That's what that's that part.
Yeah,
we become a lot less cynical and a lot more compassionate and forgiving and open when our brain is healthy. Yeah,
and I also think that it was very much a cultural reference as well, and reflected in TV and reflected in lots of cultural references to survival of the fittest and capitalism or whatever that when studied or but when I did the Science of Happiness, they were talking about evolutionary theory and the fact that we have survived not because we had the biggest muscles or we had this, that and the other. The reason we've done so well as a species is because we are of our pro-social nature and our ability to form communities and work together and nurture our young and look after each other and cooperate, and we're a hugely pro-social species. And I think I've said this before on a podcast, but it totally flipped my thinking, and I realised that we all are relating to each other. And then I saw someone helping an old lady across the road. You know, my son was poorly yesterday, and a neighbour from down the road, who I never even met, walked all the way around, and he introduced himself, and he said, I could hear your son. I could hear this noise. Is he all right? And I said, yeah, he's just poorly, and helped us out. I started to see it everywhere, and it has totally changed the way I look at everything. So that's that community. And I did this little thing the other day. I'm very interested in our local neighbourhood, things like that. And I have a ritual at the end of the summer, which I've got a massive lavender bush, which I talked to you about, and I chopped down the lavender, and we had so much of it. I tied it up with ribbons, and I delivered it with my daughter to all my female neighbours, and just left it on their doorstep. And yesterday, what I found on my doorstep was a bag of homegrown chilies.
Oh,
from
amazing.
Lynn, who just literally popped it there. So we've started this thing where we're just like, if we've got a bit of produce, we'll pop it on, we'll leave it on each other's doorstep. You know, like my heart, you know. Okay. Anyway, so all of those. But yeah, just reach out again. Connections and seeing is like, make the most of the micro connections as well. That chat in the school playground, the person at the till, maybe, you know, like I have started just stopping, instead of being grumpy and packing all my stuff, try and like engage a bit and have
my dad's amazing for that, and it used to really annoy me when I was a sulky teenager, because he's like says hello to everyone, and now I love it, because, you know, they moved back to London after moving out for sort of 25 years, and now he knows like everyone. He knows the man in the corner shop, he knows the man that makes keys, you know, he knows the guy that's always in the tube stop, you know, and he's created community around him just by being nice and saying hi and asking someone how their day is. And when he had cancer, like, you know, the corner shop guy came and helped my mom, and then, you know, his wife's she's an Ayurvedic yoga teacher, and she sort of like gave my mum some yoga, you know. So it's just that thing. It's like, yeah, just it actually is really nice just to say, you know.
Looking people. I mean, we talked about before, didn't we? Like, I mean, I still do like a pair of sunglasses. It has to be said, but I remember all the trips to the school gates, just dying with that fucking hangover, and so rancid, and not wanting to speak to people because I thought they would smell wine breath.
Yeah.
And just being able to look people in the eye of a morning and just genuinely, I mean, if I don't feel like saying hello, I you know, I might feel introvert, I might be on my period, I might feel angry, you know. I don't have to kind of be like bouncing up to everyone like Tigger and be like, hi, or that like, how are you, like, how are you doing, like,
yes, Michelle says she loves a micro connection every day. Yes, well done.
And you know, like, but authentically feeling more open and more able to connect, and when they do happen, I'm not so hideous over that I just have to just go, I can't quite face it, you know. So that's, yeah, that'll be that. And then on to E, enjoyment, play, flow. Right, so this is something that I have to work on a little bit at the moment, because I discovered the love of musical theatre, which I thought was like when I was like a goth as a teenager, and then when I was in a when I was in a trip hop band in the 90s in London, I just thought it was the lamest thing ever. But now I love a bit of musical theatre, and I can't audition this year for I miss the auditions because we've just got too much on. So how am I gonna do that? I don't know. Well, I've put, look, watching Laurel and Hardy is just going to give me that, because that is so silly. It's going to give me that laughter. And I really do like a black and white film. Knitting. Oh fuck! I'm sorry, I keep swearing. I feel really depressed now. I've got my musical theatre, but yeah, seeking out moments of flow and play. are really important in the science of happiness.
Yeah, so just to explain, if people don't know what the state of flow is, because I didn't know what it was, it's that basically when you get, like, I said this to my husband and he knew it straight away because he plays tennis and he's played tennis for years and he's very good at playing tennis, you know, and I was like, you know, it's that feeling when you just lose yourself in something. He's like, oh yeah. So for him, it's just like, you know, he's just in it. And I've never had anything like that. So for sure, for me, it was a bit like, I get it. If I'm dancing on my own, you know, that's why I think I loved raving and like being such sort of party girl, because a lot of it was to do with dancing. So definitely I do a lot of dancing around my house. But also I can get lost in colouring. You know, I do like, I always, because I think I'm a bit hyper, so I struggle quite a lot just to sit and watch TV. You know, I'm sometimes scrolling on my phone at the same time, but I'm trying not to do that. And I obviously definitely had, you know, this action drinking going on a lot. So I have some colouring pens and mandalas next to my mandalas. I don't know if I've got that right. And so I colour. So I tend to do, yeah. So I tend to do that at the same time, which you're laughing at your own joke. A really lame joke. That's all.
Yeah,
so, but I can get really lost in that, like, and I can't, you know, I can't sort of finish until I've done a certain portion of it. So I guess that's what flow is. It's like when you're in something that you kind of are not, it's a bit of a unconscious overtake, that you're not really sort of thinking about what you're doing. You're just like in it, and that really like lifts your gather, which is really good for.
I've got a scientific fact about it. It's apparently when you're engaged in an activity that is not too difficult and not too hard, it's like that sweet spot where it's almost automatic. So it's not hugely effortful, but it's not too easy. You've got to sort of apply yourself, apparently. So again, that's quite a balanced sort of concept, isn't it? About that sweet spot between effort and ease. And something that you love as well. I've just put actually that I know what I do. I have a nature shelf. Don't tell anyone. I've got a little nature shelf. Well, it's like a windowsill, and so what I find on my way to school and on my way back, and when I'm in the woods or anything pretty, I put on there. So we like that. Me and my daughter look at it. I also decorate the house for Halloween. You know, and the pumpkins, like I love the pumpkins. So I try and make the most of anything that I possibly can.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and knitting with bright wool, I got into that last year. I'm not feeling it this year for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe I haven't got the right wool, but it's just not doing it for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, you know, anything just to keep trying things until you find, you know, I mean, who knew that I would be an adult colourer? I mean, who knew that? But I am. So. Yeah. All right. Well, we've hit 10 o'clock. Well, 9 o'clock for you. So we'll just finish with any questions. If anyone's got any questions about anything, hit us with them. Do you have anything else to say to conclude, Kate?
I've got anything to conclude. I just think I just like to emphasize that point of experimentation, and also again hitting that sweet spot between experimenting and feeling like you've got to, because there's no do about any of this. This is just like, I am such a passionate advocate of whatever suits you is what you do. Like with anything, is like do any, all or none, like whatever, and to never make it about having to or feeling like you've got to fill it up a bit more, or it's just like suck it and see, or don't. It literally, or don't, like just whatever. And I, because I think I think when we've been drinking for a long time, for many, many decades, and for many different reasons, I just think one thing that is so too well defined is the inner critic and the inner meanie. And the inner meanie and the inner critic can just get hold of things, and just before you know it, you're down a cul-de-sac of beating yourself up and going, oh well, I haven't really done much compassion this week, and oh well, I didn't like reach out in my community. And it's like, just let all of that go. And yeah, it's just,
I guess it's like, what we're trying to create is, that it's like filling that void, because that's how it felt with me when I stopped, and why I was terrified to stop was just like, but what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do with my time? How am I going to spend time with my husband? He's French, enough said. And how am I going to, not that like you can't hang out with French people if you're not drinking, but just say red wine is a big part of his cultural life. But yeah, like I was terrified, like, what am I going to do with my time? And it's just that having a bag to sort of pull in and go, oh yeah, someone said, that like maybe, making a pumpkin cake might be nice. Ooh, give that a try, oh yeah, like someone said, like, pimp, that's really inappropriate. Pimp my ride is actually, I was going to say pimp my coffee, but that's not very good.
I pimp my coffee.
I know, but when you think of the cultural reference, it's not particularly great, is it? But anyway, but yeah, like, I could sort of add some, cinnamon to my porridge with some apple. That would be nice, and it's just those little things of like, it's not like you have to do it, but you might have never thought about it, and it might just sort of make you feel a bit better. Or, it's not like massive change, just little tweaks. Ooh.
Yeah. We're all about the micro, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, the macro is stopping drinking. Everything else is just little.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, so any questions before we say goodbye? Okay, well, we're going to say goodbye, and thanks so much for coming. And we'll put all the notes and all the resources together, and
we got a message from Michelle saying that she did it, and I'm really glad.
Thank you.
Really glad.
Thanks, Rachel. All right. And thank you, Anne. Loving the micro.
Really glad that you I saw all the self-care and the like
not doing the half marathon. I think that was a good
marathon. Yeah, that was just like woohoo.
Yes, micro. Yes. We'll have to come up with another acronym for micro. Yeah. All right, lots of love, everybody. We'll speak to you soon. Bye bye. Thanks for coming. Bye.